Commander Jake Morrison stared at the screen in front of him. The numbers didn't make sense. Energy readings this high should have come from a star, not empty space. He rubbed his tired eyes and looked again. The readings were still there. "Lisa, run those scans one more time," Jake said to his science officer. Chief Science Officer Lisa Carter pushed her brown hair behind her ear and typed quickly on her computer. She had been working for 6 hours straight, but the excitement in her voice was clear. "The readings are real, Commander. Whatever is out there is bigger than anything we've ever seen." The exploration ship U.E.'s Wanderer had been traveling through space for 3 months. Their mission was simple: find new worlds that humans could live on. Earth was getting crowded, and people needed new places to call home. Jake's crew of 35 had volunteered for this dangerous job. Space was big and full of unknown things. Captain Amy Rodriguez walked onto the bridge. She was a small woman with gray hair, but everyone respected her. She had been flying ships longer than most of her crew had been alive. "What do we have, Jake?" Jake pointed at the screen. "Energy signatures near the Kepler 442 system. Lisa says they're real." Amy looked at the data. Her eyes grew wide. "These readings show structures the size of moons." "That's impossible." "That's what I thought too," Lisa said. "But I've checked everything 3 times. The computers aren't broken. Something very big is orbiting those 2 stars." Navigation Officer Ryan Blake turned around in his chair. He was young and nervous about everything. "Captain, I don't think we should go there. We don't know what's waiting for us." Double quotes. Amy thought for a moment. Her job was to keep her crew safe, but they were explorers. Finding new things was why they were here. How long to get there? 2 days at full speed, Ryan answered. "Do it," Amy said. "But keep all weapons ready." "Jake, I want everyone watching those sensors." For 2 days, the crew of the Wanderer watched their screens. The energy readings got stronger as they got closer. Lisa discovered that the signals were not natural. Someone or something had built whatever was out there. Engineer Danny Walsh spent hours trying to understand the technology behind the signals. "Captain, this doesn't match anything in our books. The energy patterns are completely different from human technology." Communications. Officer Katie Moore tried to find radio signals or messages. Nothing on any frequency we know about. If there's someone there, they're not talking in any way we understand. When they finally reached the system, everyone on the bridge became very quiet. In front of them were structures that looked like giant cities floating in space. They were made of some kind of metal that seemed to change colors. Ships moved between the structures, but these ships looked alive rather than built. "My God," Amy whispered, "we're not alone." Suddenly, alarms started ringing all over the ship. "Captain," Danny shouted from his station, "something's happening to our shields." Jake looked at his instruments. "Our defensive systems are going offline. All of them." Before anyone could respond, the space around the Wanderer began to shimmer. The stars seemed to bend and twist. Then, without any warning, 5 enormous ships appeared around them. They hadn't come from anywhere. They were just suddenly there. The alien ships were beautiful and terrifying. They looked like they were made of liquid silver that moved and changed shape. Parts of the ship seemed to exist and not exist at the same time. Windows or viewing. Ports opened and closed like eyes blinking. "How did they get through our sensors?" Ryan asked, his voice shaking. "They didn't come through anything," Lisa said, staring at her readings. "They just appeared. The laws of physics say that's impossible." A new voice suddenly filled the bridge. It didn't come through their communication system. Instead, it seemed to speak directly into their minds. The voice was calm and powerful. "Small beings in your primitive vessel. I am High Commander Veltar. of the Zephyrian Empire. You have entered our territory." Katie tried to respond using the ship's radio, but Veltar continued speaking in their heads. "Your crude electromagnetic communications are unnecessary. We speak mind to mind." Amy stepped forward, even though she knew the alien couldn't see her. "I am Captain Amy Rodriguez of Earth. We come in peace. We're explorers looking for new worlds." There was a pause. Then Veltar spoke again, and they could hear something like amusement in his mental voice. "Earth, yes, we have been watching your species for some time. You are very young and use very simple technology. Your ships move so slowly, and your weapons are so weak." Jake felt angry. Nobody liked being called weak. "Our technology has taken us across the galaxy." "Across your tiny part of the galaxy," Veltar corrected. "We have ruled this galaxy for 50,000 of your years. We can bend space and time. We can create matter from nothing. We can exist in several dimensions at once. What you call impossible, we do without thinking." To prove his point, one of the Zephyrian ships suddenly split into 3 parts. Each part became a complete ship. Then they merged back together. Another ship seemed to fold in on itself and disappear, only to reappear inside the Wanderer's shield. Barrier. Danny watched his instruments go crazy. "They're ignoring our shields completely. It's like the shields don't exist." Dr. Alex Turner, the ship's physicist, shook his head in amazement. "They're violating every law of physics I know. This is impossible." "Nothing is impossible," Veltar said, clearly listening to their thoughts. "You simply don't understand the universe yet. Your science is like a child's toy compared to ours." Amy tried to stay calm. "What do you want from us? Most species we meet either bow down to us or we destroy them," Veltar explained. "You are too weak to be a threat, but something about humans interests us. You keep trying even when you should give up. You explore dangerous places even when you know you might die. This is unusual." Security Chief Nicole Adams quietly moved, her hand toward the weapons controls, but Amy shook her head. Their guns would be useless against beings who could appear and disappear at will. "We will not give you the location of Earth," Amy said firmly. Veltar laughed, and the sound echoed in their minds. "We already know where your home world is. We have known for decades. But we will not destroy it yet. Instead, we have a different idea." The alien ships moved closer. The Wanderer's hull began to make strange sounds as forces they couldn't understand pressed against it. "You will come with us," Veltar announced. "We have a test for your species. If you pass, perhaps humans have a future in this galaxy. If you fail, your species will end quickly and without pain." Amy looked at her crew. They were scared, but ready to fight if necessary. She was proud of them. "And if we refuse?" "You cannot refuse. Your ship belongs to us now." As if to prove his point, the Wanderer began moving without any input from Ryan. Their engines weren't even running, but they were accelerating toward the alien structures. Jake realized that everything had changed in just a few minutes. Humanity had always thought they were alone in the universe. Now they knew they were not only not alone, but they were also like babies compared to other species. The adventure was just beginning. The Wanderer moved through space without using its engines. Jake Morrison watched the control panel with growing concern. Every system showed they were moving, but their propulsion was completely offline. The Zephyrian ships guided them like invisible hands pushing a toy boat across water. "Captain, I've lost control of everything," Ryan Blake reported. His hands shook as he tried different commands on his navigation computer. Nothing worked. Even the backup systems won't respond. Captain Amy Rodriguez stood behind her chair, trying to look calm for her crew. Inside, her heart was racing. In 30 years of space travel, she had never felt so helpless. "How long until we reach their station?" Lisa Carter studied her sensors. The readings were unlike anything in their database. At this speed, maybe 4 hours. The structure we're heading toward is enormous. It's bigger than Earth's moon. Dr. Alex Turner couldn't stop staring at the alien ships around them. As a physicist, he had spent his life studying how the universe worked. Everything he was seeing broke the rules he thought could never be broken. Captain, they're doing things that should be impossible. Those ships are bending space around them. They're creating gravity where none should exist. High Commander Veltar's voice filled their minds again. Dr. Turner, your understanding of physics is very limited. You think in straight lines and simple mathematics. The universe is far more flexible than your science suggests. Alex felt embarrassed that the alien had heard his thoughts. How are you reading our minds? All thoughts create vibrations in space-time, Veltar explained. We learn to hear these vibrations millions of years ago. Your thoughts are quite loud and simple, very easy to understand. Engineer Danny Walsh was taking apart a control panel, trying to figure out how the aliens had taken control of their ship. Sparks flew from his tools, but nothing he tried worked. This is crazy. They're controlling our ship, but I can't find any new connections or signals. It's like they're just thinking at our computers and making them obey. That is exactly what we are doing, Veltar said. Your machines are crude, but they respond to properly directed quantum fields. Watch. Suddenly, the lights on the bridge began changing colors. Red became blue, then green, then purple. The gravity shifted, making everyone feel lighter, then heavier, then normal again. Computer screens showed pictures of alien worlds. Beautiful and strange. Communications officer Katie Moore tried to record what was happening, but her equipment kept changing by itself. My instruments are rewriting themselves. The computer is learning alien languages I've never seen before. We are improving your technology, Veltar said. Your devices are so simple that even small changes make them work much better. Amy felt anger rising in her chest. Stop it. Don't change our equipment without permission. The changes stopped immediately. As you wish, Captain Rodriguez. We meant no harm. We forget that primitive species become upset when their tools are altered. The word primitive stung like a slap. Amy had always been proud of human achievements. Earth had built cities that reached the clouds, sent ships to distant stars, and cured diseases that had killed millions. Now, these aliens called all of that primitive. We prefer to call it different, not primitive, Amy said carefully. Veltar seemed amused. Your politeness is interesting. Most species either worship us immediately or attack us in fear. You do neither. Security Chief Nicole Adams had been quietly preparing her weapons team. She knew their guns probably wouldn't work against aliens this advanced, but she had to try something. Captain, should we prepare for combat? Your weapons will not harm us, Veltar said, hearing her thoughts. But your willingness to fight despite impossible odds is fascinating. Let me show you why resistance is pointless. The space around the Wanderer began to change. Stars that had been light years away suddenly appeared close enough to touch. Then they moved back to their original positions. A small asteroid appeared in front of them, growing larger and larger. Just when it looked like it would hit their ship, it disappeared completely. We created that asteroid from the dust around us, Veltar explained. Then we unmade it. We can do the same to your ship, your planet, or your entire star system. Dr. Turner's hands trembled as he watched his instruments. The energy requirements for what they just did should have required the power of a star. How is this possible? Energy and matter are the same thing, Veltar said. When you truly understand this, you can change one into the other with thought alone. Your Einstein discovered the beginning of this truth, but your species has barely started to learn. Lisa Carter was recording everything she could. Even if they didn't survive, maybe someone would find their data someday. The energy patterns don't match anything we know. It's like they're using forces that don't exist in our physics books. Your physics books describe only a tiny part of reality, Veltar said. Imagine an ant trying to understand how humans build cities. That is your science compared to ours. Amy decided to try a different approach. If you're so advanced, why are you interested in us at all? There was a pause. When Veltar spoke again, his mental voice sounded thoughtful. We have ruled this galaxy for a very long time. We have destroyed species that threatened us and absorbed species that served us. But you humans do something we rarely see. What's that? Jake asked. You continue trying even when you should give up. Your species left your home world in ships that barely worked. You traveled to stars without knowing what you would find. Most species wait until they have perfect technology. You use whatever you have and hope for the best. Katie Moore found herself smiling despite their situation. We call it taking chances. Someone has to be first. Yes, taking chances. We have not taken chances in thousands of years. We calculate everything before we act. We know the result before we begin. It has made us very powerful, but perhaps we have lost something important. The Zephyrian station grew larger in front of them. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Parts of it seemed to exist in more dimensions than the human eye could see. Buildings grew and changed shape like living things. Ships flowed in and out of docking bays that opened and closed like mouths. We have arrived, Veltar announced. You will come aboard our station. Do not be afraid. We will not harm you unless you give us reason to. Amy looked at her crew. They were scared but determined. What exactly do you want us to do? We have a problem that has puzzled our greatest minds for centuries. You will attempt to solve it. If you succeed, your species may have a future in this galaxy. If you fail, we will ensure your end is quick and painless. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of problem? Something is destroying star systems at the edge of our territory. Our most advanced technology cannot stop it. Our most brilliant scientists cannot understand it. Perhaps your primitive methods will see something we cannot. The Wanderer was pulled into a docking bay that adjusted its size to fit their ship perfectly. Through the windows, they could see Zephyrians moving around outside. They looked almost human, but taller and thinner. Their skin had a silver shine, and they seemed to glow with their own light. Prepare to disembark, Veltar commanded. Your test begins now. Amy gathered her senior officers. Stay together. Be polite, but don't show fear. Remember, we represent all of humanity. As they prepared to meet their hosts, none of them realized that this moment would change the fate of every species in the galaxy. The test that awaited them would challenge everything both humans and Zephyrians believed about intelligence, power, and survival. The docking bay doors opened with a sound like singing crystal. Captain Amy Rodriguez led her team onto the Zephyrian station and immediately felt dizzy. The gravity was different here, lighter but somehow more solid at the same time. The air tasted clean and sweet, almost too perfect. High Commander Veltar waited for them in the center of the bay. He was tall and thin, with silver skin that seemed to glow from the inside. His eyes were larger than human eyes and completely black, like looking into deep space. When he moved, he seemed to flow rather than walk. Welcome to Research Station Prime, Veltar said aloud instead of speaking in their minds. His voice was musical and strange. We thought you might be more comfortable hearing our words with your ears. Dr. Alex Turner looked around in amazement. The walls of the station seemed alive, shifting and changing color. Patterns moved across the surfaces like water flowing uphill. The architecture is impossible, How do these structures support themselves? They don't support themselves, Veltar explained. They exist because we will them to exist. Matter obeys consciousness when consciousness is properly trained. Behind Veltar stood several other Zephyrians. They watched the humans with curious expressions, like scientists studying interesting insects. One of them, younger looking with bright silver markings on her face, stepped forward. "I am Kethmer, senior researcher," she said. "I have studied your species for many years. Your behavior patterns are most unusual." Communications Officer Katie Moore felt brave enough to ask a question. "What do you mean, unusual?" Kethmer's large eyes seemed to sparkle. Most species develop technology in predictable ways. They master their planet, then their star system, then venture slowly outward. You humans left your world when your technology was still dangerous and unreliable. Very curious. Engineer Danny Walsh was staring at the tools and equipment around. The bay. Everything seemed to be made of the same flowing, changing material. "How do your machines work?" "I don't see any moving parts or power sources." "Our tools are grown, not built," another Zephyrian explained. "We shape reality itself to create what we need. Watch." The alien held out his hand, and a complex device appeared in his palm. It looked like a crystal flower with metal roots, but it pulsed with its own light. Then he closed his hand, and the device vanished completely. "The tool exists when we need it," the Zephyrian said. "When we don't need it, we let it return the possibility." Jake Morrison felt his head spinning. Everything he had learned about engineering was becoming useless. That breaks every law of conservation we know. "Your laws are incomplete," Veltar said gently. "You see only the surface of reality. Beneath what you call the physical universe, there are deeper layers where thought and matter dance together." Amy realized they needed to focus on their mission. "You said you have a problem you want us to solve. What exactly are we dealing with?" Veltar's expression became serious. "Follow me to the analysis chamber. What you will see has challenged our greatest minds for 300 of your years." They walked through corridors that seemed to stretch and bend as they moved. Lisa Carter kept trying to map their route, but the passages didn't follow normal geometry. Rooms appeared to be bigger inside than outside, and some doorways led to spaces that couldn't possibly fit where they seemed to be. "Stop trying to understand the architecture with your linear thinking," Kethmer advised Lisa kindly. "Our buildings exist in several dimensions. Your three-dimensional minds cannot fully perceive them." They entered a vast chamber filled with floating displays showing star maps and data streams. In the center was a three-dimensional image of a galaxy, slowly rotating. Dark areas spread across one edge like ink stains on paper. "Behold the void plague," Veltar announced. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, who had joined the team as a specialist in theoretical physics, studied the display. "What are those dark areas?" "Regions where space-time itself has been destroyed," Veltar explained. "Stars, planets, entire solar systems simply cease to exist. Not destroyed in the normal sense, but erased from reality itself." "Security, Chief." Nicole Adams felt a chill. "How many systems have been lost?" "Over 4,000 in the past century," Kethmer replied. "The plague spreads slowly but steadily. Nothing we do can stop it." Ben Parker, another physicist on the human team, pointed at the pattern. "It looks almost like it's following specific paths. Is there some kind of intelligence behind it?" "We do not know," Veltar admitted. "Our most advanced sensors cannot penetrate the affected regions. When we send ships to investigate, they simply disappear. No distress signals, no wreckage, nothing." Engineer Peter Kim studied the data streams flowing around them. The information was presented in ways human. Minds weren't designed to process, but he could see patterns. "How fast does it spread?" "Approximately one star system every few months," another Zephyrian scientist replied. But the rate is increasing. In another 1,000 years, it will reach the core worlds of our empire. Amy looked at her team. The magnitude of the problem was overwhelming. What have you tried so far? Veltar gestured, and new displays appeared. We have attempted to contain it with quantum barriers. Failed. We have tried to redirect it using gravitational manipulation. Failed. We have sent our most powerful reality shapers to unmake the plague at its source. They disappeared. Systems analyst Rachel Green was studying the data patterns with her portable computer. Her simple human technology looked like a toy compared to the Zephyrian displays, but she noticed something. The spread pattern isn't random. There's a mathematical sequence here. Kethmer turned to look at her small device. What do you mean? Look at the timing between outbreaks. They follow a pattern based on prime numbers, but modified by some kind of decay function. It's like the plague is solving equations as it moves. The Zephyrians exchanged glances. We have not noticed this pattern, Veltar said quietly. Commander. Troy Stevens, who had been observing silently, spoke up. Maybe that's because you're looking too hard. Sometimes when you stare directly at something, you miss what's right next to it. Dr. Tony Anderson nodded in agreement. In human medicine, we learned that sometimes the cure for a disease isn't fighting it directly. Sometimes you work with the body's natural defenses instead. Your biological metaphors are interesting, Kethmer said, but this is not a biological problem. This threatens the fabric of space-time itself. Emma Collins, the communications specialist, had been quietly watching the younger Zephyrians. She noticed they seemed more interested in human ideas than the older ones. How long has your civilization been using quantum manipulation? For over 50 millennia, Veltar replied proudly. And in all that time, you've never faced a problem like this? Nothing has ever resisted our reality-shaping abilities before. Pilot Marcus Webb and navigator Julie Brooks were studying the three-dimensional map from different angles. What if the problem isn't that you can't stop it? Marcus suggested. What if the problem is that your methods are making it stronger? The chamber became very quiet. Several Zephyrians looked shocked at the suggestion. Impossible, one of them sighed. Our technology is perfect. It cannot cause problems. Perfect systems often create unexpected side effects, Rachel said, still studying her data. In our computer networks, the most advanced programs sometimes cause problems that simple programs don't. Dr. Mitchell was examining the quantum field. Readings around the plague zones. What if your reality manipulation is creating small tears in space-time? Tiny ones that you don't notice, but they add up over thousands of years? Kethmer's eyes widened. We have never considered that our technology itself might be contributing to the problem. Veltar looked troubled. You suggest that our greatest strength might be our greatest weakness? We suggest that maybe you need a different approach. Amy said carefully. Something that works with the natural laws instead of bending them. The Zephyrians around them began talking among themselves in their musical language. The younger ones seemed excited, while the older ones looked skeptical. You would attempt to solve this with your primitive technology? Veltar asked. We'd like to try, Amy replied. What do you have to lose? After a long pause, Veltar nodded. Very well. We will give you access to our research facilities and all our data. You have one of your months to develop a solution. As the humans were led to their temporary quarters, none of them realized they were about to challenge 50,000 years of Zephyrian assumptions about how the universe should work. The human team spent their first week in the Zephyrian research facility trying to understand technology that seemed like magic. The laboratory walls changed shape based on what experiments they wanted to run. Computers appeared when they needed them and vanished when they were done. Everything responded to thought and will rather than buttons and switches. Peter Kim sat in front of a Zephyrian quantum manipulator, frustrated and confused. The device could create any element from pure energy, but he couldn't figure out how it worked. There are no circuits, no power source, no moving parts. It's like trying to understand how a dream works. Dr. Sarah Mitchell was having similar problems with the reality-shaping tools. They expect us to think the matter into existence. When I try, nothing happens. When Kethmer does it, perfect crystals appear instantly. Systems analyst Rachel Green had taken a different approach. Instead of trying to use Zephyrian technology, she was analyzing the void plague data with her human computers. "Look at this pattern," she called to her teammates. "The plague doesn't just destroy randomly. It follows mathematical rules." Ben Parker joined her at her simple human workstation. Compared to the flowing Zephyrian displays around them, Rachel's equipment looked like stone tools. "What kind of rules?" "It's like the plague is solving physics problems as it moves. Each system it destroys follows a specific equation. The timing, the location, even the order of destruction follows mathematical sequences." Dr. Tony Anderson looked over her shoulder. "That's impossible. Random destruction can't follow math." "Unless it's not random," Rachel said quietly. "What if the void plague is actually a natural response to something else? Like how a fever is the body's response to infection?" Across the laboratory, engineer Danny Walsh was trying a completely different approach. While his teammates struggled with alien tools, he was building something with spare parts from their ship. Sparks flew as he welded metal pieces together, using a simple human torch. Kethmer approached him, curious. "What are you creating with such primitive methods?" "A sensor probe," Danny replied, not looking up from his work. "I want to study the plague zones, but your quantum sensors are too advanced. They might be changing what they're trying to measure." "That is impossible. Our sensors observe without interfering." Danny paused his work and looked at the young Zephyrian scientist. "In human physics, we learned that you can't observe something without changing it. Even light changes what it touches. But our sensors use quantum fields that exist outside normal spacetime." "Maybe that's the problem," Danny said. "What if the plague exists partly outside normal spacetime too? Your quantum sensors might be feeding it energy without you knowing." Kethmer's large eyes grew even wider. "We never considered that possibility." Meanwhile, pilot Marcus Webb and navigator Julie Brooks were studying the three-dimensional map of plague movements. They noticed something the Zephyrians had missed because they thought in terms of quantum mechanics instead of simple navigation. "Julie, look at this movement pattern," Marcus said, tracing paths through the holographic display. "If you ignore the quantum effects and just look at basic motion, what do you see?" Julie studied the data with her pilot's eye for reading flight paths. "It's following the gravitational currents between star systems, like a ship riding ocean currents instead of fighting them." "Exactly. The plague isn't forcing its way through space. It's using the natural flows that already exist." Dr. Karen Ross, who specialized in human psychology, was observing how the Zephyrians worked. They're so focused on controlling reality that they've forgotten how to work with it. Every solution they try involves forcing the universe to obey them. Captain Amy Rodriguez gathered her team for a meeting in their assigned quarters. The room was beautiful, but strange, with walls that glowed softly and furniture that adjusted itself to their bodies. "What have we learned so far?" Peter Kim spoke first. "Their technology is amazing, but it's like using a sledgehammer to paint a picture. Too much power for delicate work." "The plague follows mathematical patterns," Rachel added, "but they're quantum. Sensors might be interfering with accurate measurements, and it moves like a natural phenomenon, not an attack," Marcus said. "It follows the path of least resistance through space." Amy nodded. "So what do we try?" Dr. Mitchell had been thinking about the problem differently. What if we don't try to stop the plague directly? What if we try to understand what's causing it first? The Zephyrians have been studying it for 300 years, Ben pointed out. Yes, but they've been studying it with tools that might be part of the problem, Sarah replied. What if we study it the way humans study things? With simple tools and basic observations? Danny held up his homemade sensor probe. This is ready for testing. It uses electromagnetic radiation and basic physics. No quantum manipulation at all. Engineer Steve Clark, who had been quietly working on calculations, looked up from his notebook. I've been thinking about energy conservation. The Zephyrians create matter from energy all the time. Where does that energy come from? Kethmer, who had been listening to their conversation, answered. From the quantum vacuum. There is infinite energy available in the spaces between atoms. But what if it's not infinite? Steve asked. What if borrowing energy from space-time creates debts that have to be paid back somehow? The room became very quiet. The idea that Zephyrian technology might be causing the problem they were trying to solve was revolutionary. You're suggesting that 50,000 years of reality manipulation has weakened space-time itself? Amy asked. It's just a theory, Steve said. But in human engineering, we learned that every action has consequences. Maybe quantum manipulation has consequences too. Dr. Ashley Miller, who studied how different species thought and learned, had been watching Zephyrian students work. Their minds are trained to think in terms of control and perfection. They've lost the ability to think about adaptation and compromise. What do you mean? Julie asked. When a Zephyrian faces a problem, they try to impose a perfect solution. When humans face a problem, we try different things until something works. We're comfortable with imperfect solutions that can be improved over time. Communications specialist Emma Collins had been talking with younger Zephyrians during breaks. Some of them are starting to question their own methods, especially the ones who work with me. They're curious about how humans solve problems through trial and error. Engineer Gary Foster had been designing a completely different approach to the plague problem. What if instead of trying to destroy the plague or contain it, we try to redirect it? Like building a dam to control a flood instead of trying to stop the water? Using what technology? Peter asked. Simple technology. Nuclear fusion for power, electromagnetic fields for guidance, and basic physics for calculations. Nothing that manipulates space-time directly. Amy looked around at her team. They were tired but excited. For the first time since arriving at the station, they felt like they were making progress. Kethmer, Amy said to the Zephyrian scientist. Would your people let us test our ideas? Kethmer hesitated. The Council of Elders believes that primitive technology cannot solve what advanced technology cannot. But I am curious about your methods. We don't need permission to think differently, Danny said, holding up his simple probe. We just need permission to test our ideas. I will speak to High Commander Veltar, Kethmer promised. Perhaps it is time for us to try something new. As the human team prepared their unconventional approach to an impossible problem, they didn't realize they were about to challenge not just Zephyrian technology, but Zephyrian thinking itself. Sometimes the best solutions came not from having the most advanced tools, but from being willing to use simple tools in creative ways. High Commander Veltar stood in the observation chamber, watching the humans prepare their simple probe for launch. Their equipment looked crude compared to Zephyrian technology, but Kethmer had convinced him to let them try. 3 weeks had passed since the humans arrived, and their different approach to problems fascinated the younger Zephyrians. Their probe uses electromagnetic waves and nuclear power, Kethmer explained to Veltar. No quantum manipulation at all. They believe our advanced sensors might be interfering with accurate readings. Veltar found the idea disturbing. They suggest our technology causes problems rather than solving them. They suggest we might be missing something because we look too hard. Kethmer replied. Engineer Danny Walsh made final adjustments to his homemade probe. It was built from spare parts and powered by a small fusion reactor. Compared to Zephyrian devices that could reshape reality, it was incredibly simple. But Danny believed simple tools sometimes saw things that complex ones missed. Probe. Ready for launch, Danny announced to Captain Amy Rodriguez. Amy looked at the Zephyrian observers. Some seemed curious, others skeptical. Launch when ready. The probe shot out from the station toward the nearest plague zone. Unlike Zephyrian ships that could appear instantly anywhere they wanted, the human probe traveled at normal speeds. Through normal space, it would take 6 hours to reach its target. While they waited, systems analyst Rachel Green continued studying plague patterns with her basic computer. Dr. Sarah Mitchell and Ben Parker worked on equations using old-fashioned mathematics instead of quantum calculations. Their approach was so different from Zephyrian methods that some of the alien scientists looked confused. Why do you calculate by hand when quantum computers can give instant answers? Asked Morthic, an elderly Zephyrian researcher. Because instant answers might not be complete answers, Sarah replied. When we work through problems step by step, we sometimes discover things that fast computers miss. 6 hours later, Danny's probe reached the edge of a plague zone. The data it sent back shocked everyone in the observation chamber. The readings are completely different from ours, Kethner said, staring at the simple electromagnetic signals. Coming from the probe. Dr. Tony Anderson studied the data on his portable screen. Your quantum sensors were right about the space-time distortions, but they missed something crucial. The plague isn't destroying matter randomly. It's converting it into a form of energy that quantum sensors can't detect. Impossible, Morthic declared. Our sensors detect all forms of energy. Not this one, Rachel said, pointing at her data analysis. The plague is converting matter into what we might call dark energy. It exists, but doesn't interact with quantum fields. Engineer Peter Kim was examining the probe's gravitational readings. The mass isn't disappearing. It's still there, but in a form that your technology can't perceive or manipulate. Veltar felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries: confusion. If this is true, then our attempts to fight the plague with quantum manipulation. We're feeding it, Danny finished. Every time you tried to reshape reality near a plague zone, you are giving it more quantum energy to convert. The chamber fell silent. The implications were staggering. 50,000 years of technological advancement might have created the very problem they were trying to solve. Pilot Marcus Webb had been studying the probe's movement data. There's more. The plague zones aren't expanding randomly. They're following the paths of quantum energy that your civilization has been spreading across the galaxy. Like following a trail of breadcrumbs, Navigator Julie Brooks added. Your quantum manipulation leaves traces in space-time, and the plague follows those traces. Dr. Karen Ross, who studied how minds worked, observed the Zephyrian reactions. This is why your species couldn't solve the problem. You can only think in terms of quantum solutions. When the answer required non-quantum thinking, you were blind. To it, Kethmer turned to her fellow Zephyrians. The humans may be correct. We have been so focused on our advanced methods that we never considered simpler approaches. But how do we stop it? Veltar asked. If quantum manipulation feeds the plague, how do we fight something we cannot touch? You don't fight it, engineer. Steve Clark said. You redirect it. Amy stepped forward. We have a plan, but it requires building technology that your people have never used before. Primitive technology? Morthic asked with distaste. Effective technology, Amy corrected. Our plan uses nuclear fusion to create stable anchor points in space-time. Instead of bending reality, we work within its natural laws. Dr. Ashley Miller explained further. The plague follows quantum energy trails like water follows riverbeds. If we create new channels using electromagnetic fields, we can redirect the plague away from inhabited systems. And because the plague converts quantum energy into dark energy, we use non-quantum technology that it can't feed on, added Gary. Foster. Communications specialist Emma Collins had been working with young Zephyrian scientists who were excited about human methods. Some of your people want to help us build this system. They're curious about non-quantum engineering. Veltar looked around the chamber. Half of his scientists seemed shocked by the suggestions, while the other half appeared intrigued. The older Zephyrians couldn't accept that their advanced technology was part of the problem, but the younger ones were eager to try new approaches. The first test site is ready, Danny announced. His team had spent days building a network of simple satellites, powered by fusion reactors. Each satellite projected electromagnetic fields that created a barrier the plague couldn't cross. Launching test satellites now, Marcus reported from the pilot station. The satellites moved slowly compared to Zephyrian ships, but they reached their positions around a small plague zone. Instead of trying to destroy or contain the plague, they simply offered it a new path to follow. Field activation in 10 seconds. Steve announced. The electromagnetic barriers came online. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the plague zone began to shift, following the new electromagnetic channels away from the nearby star system. It's working, Rachel breathed, watching the data streams. The plague is being redirected. The Zephyrians in the observation chamber stared in amazement. A problem that had resisted their most advanced technology for 3 centuries was being solved by devices that looked like toys. The star system is safe, Kefmer announced. The plague is following the electromagnetic channels toward empty space. Veltar felt emotions he hadn't experienced in millennia. Wonder, humility, and something that might have been excitement. Your simple technology succeeds where our advanced methods failed. It's not about simple or advanced, Amy explained. It's about using the right tool for the job. Sometimes a hammer works better than a computer. Dr. Mitchell was already planning. The next phase. We can build a network of these redirectors across her territory. Instead of fighting the plague, we guide it toward empty regions where it can't harm anyone. The plague zones already created can be slowly drained by building larger redirector networks, Ben added. It will take time, but the affected areas can eventually be restored. Engineer Gary Foster was working with young Zephyrian scientists who wanted to learn human engineering methods. Your people are quick learners. With both our technologies working together, we can solve this problem completely. As news of the successful test spread through the station, something remarkable happened. Zephyrians who had ruled the galaxy through technological superiority began asking humans to teach them new ways of thinking. We have been so focused on perfection that we forgot about adaptation, Kethmer admitted to Emma Collins. Your species succeeds because you're willing to try imperfect solutions and improve them over time. And your species succeeds because you're not afraid to completely reimagine what's possible, Emma replied. Maybe working together, we can do things neither of us could do alone. High Commander Veltar made a decision that would change galactic history. The humans have proven that different thinking can solve impossible problems. I propose a formal alliance between our species. As the first joint human Zephyrian research teams began forming, everyone realized that something unprecedented was happening. The galaxy's most powerful species was learning that true strength came not from advanced technology alone, but from the wisdom to know when simple solutions worked better than complex ones. 6 months after first contact, the galaxy looked completely different. High Commander Veltar stood beside Admiral Lara James in the command center of the first joint human Zephyrian space station. Through the massive viewing window, they watched. Construction ships from both species working together to build something that had never existed before. The Andromeda Gateway will be ready for testing next week, Admiral James reported. She had been promoted to lead the new Galactic Coalition. Forces. Your reality-shaping technology, combined with our adaptive engineering, has created something neither of us could have built alone. Veltar nodded, still amazed by how much his people had learned from humans. Our ancient pride blinded us to simple truths. We thought power meant control, but you showed us that true power comes from working with natural forces rather than fighting them. The Void Plague crisis had been completely solved 2 months earlier. Networks of human design. Redirector satellites now guided the plague energy toward empty space where it could harmlessly dissipate. Zephyrian quantum manipulation helped build the satellites faster, while human adaptability allowed the network to adjust to new plague patterns automatically. Captain Bill Thompson supervised the final installation of navigation systems on the new exploration ships. These vessels combined Zephyrian instant travel with human backup systems that could function if the quantum drives failed. Every ship now has redundant systems, he reported to the construction team. If advanced technology fails, simple technology takes over. Dr. Ashley Miller walked through the halls of the Galactic Institute for Adaptive Sciences, the first school designed to teach multiple species how to think like humans. Her students included beings from 17 different worlds, all learning what she called human thinking, the art of finding creative solutions through controlled chaos and trial and error methods. Today we will practice failure, Dr. Miller announced to her mixed class of aliens. On Earth, we learned that failing quickly and cheaply teaches us more than trying to be perfect from the start. A student from the crystalline Velinari species raised a glowing appendage. But failure wastes resources and time. Failure saves resources and time, corrected a young Zephyrian named Ithara. She had been one of Dr. Miller's first students, and now helped teach other species. When we accept that early attempts will be imperfect, we learn faster and create better final solutions. Engineer Gary Foster was training Zephyrian technicians in his workshop, showing them how to build things that could be easily repaired and modified. His students found it difficult at first to create imperfect devices on purpose, but they were learning the value of adaptable systems. Remember, Gary told a group of advanced Zephyrian engineers, the goal isn't to build something perfect. The goal is to build something that works well enough and can be improved over time. One of his students, Kethmer, held up a simple mechanical wrench. This tool cannot reshape reality or manipulate quantum fields, but it can fix things that reality shapers cannot reach. Exactly, Gary smiled. Sometimes the best solution is the simplest one. Meanwhile, Captain Amy Rodriguez was meeting with representatives from the hegemony of free worlds, a coalition of species that had asked to join the new Galactic Alliance. The success of human Zephyrian cooperation had attracted attention from across the galaxy. We have watched your species work together, said Ambassador Trindow of the aquatic Murkith people. You have shown that advanced civilizations can learn from less advanced ones. This gives us hope. We're all advanced in different ways, Amy replied. The key is being willing to admit when someone else knows something you don't. The meeting was interrupted by an emergency communication from Dr. Karan Ross, who was studying the psychological effects of the new cooperation. Admiral, we have a situation developing in the Vega sector. 3 species are requesting mediation for a territorial dispute. What kind of dispute? Amy asked. The usual kind, Karen replied. Each species thinks their technology and culture is superior to the others. They want us to prove which one is right. Amy sighed. Tell them we'll send a mixed team. Humans to suggest compromise solutions. Zephyrians to demonstrate that advanced technology doesn't solve everything. This had become a common occurrence. As news spread that the galaxy's most powerful species was working as equals with a much younger civilization, other conflicts began seeking similar solutions. The human approach of finding common ground was slowly changing how galactic politics worked. Communications specialist Emma Collins was coordinating with exploration teams, preparing for the first mission to the Andromeda Galaxy. The joint fleet would include ships from 12 different species, all working together using principles learned from human Zephyrian cooperation. Final crew assignments are complete, Emma reported to the mission commanders. Each ship will have mixed crews with at least one human, one Zephyrian, and representatives from allied species. Commander Chris Howard, who would lead the exploration mission, reviewed the crew lists. The diversity is impressive. Crystalline navigators, aquatic engineers, gaseous communications specialists, and energy being physicists, all working with humans and Zephyrians. Dr. Tony Anderson was making final checks on the adaptive technology that would allow the fleet to handle unexpected situations. The ships can reconfigure themselves based on what they encounter. If we meet something completely new, we can adapt our approach instead of trying to force our existing solutions to work. Engineer Steve Clark monitored the power systems that combined fusion reactors with quantum manipulation. Backup systems are ready. If quantum technology fails or causes problems, conventional systems automatically take over. The launch ceremony was attended by representatives from 43 species. Veltar and Amy stood together on the observation platform, watching the most diverse fleet in galactic history prepare for departure. A year ago, I believed that advanced technology was the answer to every problem, Veltar said quietly. Now, I understand that the best technology is technology that knows when not to be used. And we learned that our stubborn refusal to give up isn't just useful for humans, Amy replied. That kind of determination can help any species push through impossible problems. The first ship in the fleet activated its hybrid drive system. Instead of simply appearing in Andromeda through pure quantum manipulation, it used a combination of technologies that would allow the crew to adapt if they encountered something. Unexpected dot as the fleet disappeared into the space between galaxies. Those watching realized they were witnessing the birth of something unprecedented. For the first time in galactic history, exploration wasn't about conquest or proving superiority. It was about discovery and cooperation. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, now director of the Coalition Science Council, spoke at the ceremony. Today marks the beginning of a new age. We go to Andromeda not as conquerors, but as students, ready to learn from whatever we find there. The success of the Human-Zephyrian alliance had proven something important to every species in the galaxy. True advancement didn't come from having the most powerful technology or the most sophisticated culture. It came from being willing to learn, adapt, and work together with others who thought differently. As reports came back from the Andromeda mission over the following months, the pattern continued. Problems that would have stumped any single species were solved through cooperation. The fleet encountered energy storms that could disable quantum drives, but mechanical backup systems kept them moving. They found crystalline beings who communicated through harmonic frequencies that only the Velinari could understand. But human diplomatic methods helped establish peaceful contact. Most importantly, they discovered that the universe was full of challenges that no single approach could handle. But working together, sharing different ways of thinking and different technologies, they could face anything. The mightiest species in the galaxy had met humans, and nothing was ever the same. Not because humans conquered anyone, but because they taught everyone else the most powerful lesson in the universe. That true strength comes from admitting you don't know everything and being willing to learn from anyone who can teach you something new.